It was a quiet night. The wind was cold and the forest around the old house made soft, creepy sounds. Jake sat alone in his small wooden cabin, far away from the town. He was fixing an old radio, something he liked to do in silence. No phone, no internet. Just peace, but peace doesn't last forever. At 3 a.m., a strange knock came from the front door. Knock, knock, knock. Jake froze. No one ever came here, especially not at night. He grabbed his flashlight and walked slowly to the door. His dog, Max, started growling low, ears up, tail stiff. Max never growled unless something was wrong. Jake opened the door just a little, and what he saw made him take a step back. There stood a tall, thin woman, not human. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were large and silver. She was holding a small child wrapped in a dark cloth. The child looked weak, almost unconscious. The woman looked scared. But calm. She whispered, her voice shaking. We have nowhere else to go. You're the only one I can trust. Jake blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. What? Who are you? He asked, his voice low. She looked behind her, then back at him. Please, let us in. Just for the night. They're coming. Jake saw a light flash far off in the sky. It was moving fast. A drone? A ship? He didn't know. But something in her eyes told him this wasn't a trick. He opened the door fully and let them inside. Inside the cabin, Jake helped the alien woman sit down on the couch. He placed the child gently on a blanket. The child looked sick, skin pale and breathing. Weak. Is he okay? Jake asked. He's tired. We have been running for days, she replied. Jake gave her water. What's your name? My name is Alira. This is my son, Keel. Are you from another planet? She nodded. Yes, we were part of a peaceful mission. My husband, he was our leader, but he's dead now. They killed him. Now they want us too. Jake sat down, confused but listening. Why come to me? He asked. She looked at him with tired eyes. You worked at the old military base nearby. You helped design the signal systems. My husband said. If things go wrong, find the human named Jake. He's different. Jake was shocked. That was over 10 years ago. He had left the military after a secret mission went bad, a mission no one was allowed to talk about. Max, the dog, walked over to Keel and sniffed him. Then, instead of barking or growling, Max lay down beside the child as if guarding him. That surprised Jake even more. Max never liked strangers. Suddenly, a high-pitched humming sound came from outside. A low red light passed across the cabin window. Alira stood up quickly. They found us. Jake rushed to turn off all lights. He pulled Alira and the child to the floor. Max growled again. Outside, a strange drone-like machine hovered. It wasn't any tech Jake had seen before. It was black, silent, with blinking red eyes. It scanned the house. Jake held his breath. After a minute, the drone moved on, but Jake knew it would come back. We can't stay here, he said. Alira nodded. I know, but my child. He needs to rest, even if just for one night. Jake looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't a monster. She was a mother, scared and alone, trying to protect her son. He remembered his own wife. And the baby they lost years ago. That pain still lived in him. I'll help you, he said quietly. Later that night, while Alira and Keel slept, Jake went outside. He checked under his truck. Something was blinking, a tracking device. His heart raced. Someone had already marked his location, maybe hours ago, maybe days. He pulled it off and threw it far into the woods. Back inside, Alira stood at the door. She had felt it too. They will come again, she whispered. Jake nodded. Then we'll be ready. But deep inside, Jake knew. Nothing could prepare them for what was coming. The sun was not up yet, but the sky had started to turn gray. Jake stood outside, watching the trees, listening to every sound. He hadn't slept. The events of the night were still fresh in his mind. The alien woman, the child, the knock, and the drone. Inside the cabin, Alira sat near the fire, holding her sleeping son in her arms. She was silent, eyes staring at the flames. Something in her gaze looked far away, like her mind was trapped in a memory. She didn't want to remember that Jake made 2 cups of coffee, one for himself and one for her. He placed the cup next to her, carefully. "You didn't tell me everything," he said quietly. Alira looked at him, her face calm, but her eyes full of pain. "No," she replied. "I didn't." For a long moment there was silence, then she spoke, slowly, carefully. Like the words themselves hurt. "My husband's name was Sarian. He believed in peace. He came here years ago to work with humans. We were part of a project. A secret alliance." Jake listened closely. This part he had never heard before. Not even during his military years, Alira continued. "Your leaders promised peace. They said they wanted to learn from us. They said they wanted to share knowledge." Jake frowned. "They?" She nodded. "The ones in charge? Not your people, but those in the shadows. Men who don't follow rules? Men who hide truth?" Jake understood. He had seen glimpses of that darkness before, but no one ever spoke about it openly. Alira took a deep breath. "One day my husband discovered something. A plan. Your people weren't working on peace. They were working on weapons, using our technology. Testing it, modifying it." She looked at Jake. "Sarian tried to stop them. He was murdered." Jake's jaw tightened. "How?" "They made it look like an accident. Then they came for me. For my son, but we escaped." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I never wanted to come back to Earth, but I had no choice. The ones hunting us, they're not only human anymore." Jake sat down, stunned. His memories rushed back. The base, the silent missions, the strange materials they were told not to touch, the orders that never made sense. He looked at Alira's child. Keel was sleeping peacefully, but his body glowed faintly. Soft, blue light pulsing through his veins. "What's happening to him?" Jake asked. Alira hesitated. "He's changing." Jake leaned in. "What do you mean?" Alira spoke in a low voice. "He is not like me, and not like you. He was born from both worlds. He sees things before they happen. He feels thoughts even from far away." Jake stared at the boy. "Last night," Alira said, "he told me you would help us. He saw you before we ever came." Jake stood up, confused but curious. "Are you saying he can see the future?" "Not exactly," she replied. "He sees possibilities, warnings." Just then, Max, the dog, jumped to his feet and started barking at the door. Jake ran over and looked outside. Nothing. But then, a flash of blue light in the sky, silent, fast, not natural. "Get down," Jake said, pulling Alira away. From the window, he stepped outside with his flashlight and checked the trees. On the ground, near the edge of the forest, something was half buried in the dirt. Jake walked over and pulled it out. It was a metal shard. Sharp, smooth, and glowing faintly. He turned it in his hand. A symbol was carved on it. Not human. Not anything he had ever seen. He brought it inside. Alira's face went pale the moment she saw it. "That's not from Earth," she said. "That's from the ones chasing us." Jake placed the shard on the table and stared at it. "What do they want?" Alira looked at him with fear in her voice. "They want my son." Jake stared at the sleeping child again. "What is he to them?" Alira's voice trembled. "He is something they don't understand. And they fear what they can't control." Suddenly, Keel's eyes opened, wide and glowing. He sat up slowly and whispered something. Jake leaned closer to hear him. The boy's voice was soft, but clear. "They're coming back." Asterisk, the boy's words echoed in the silence of the cabin. "They're coming back." Jake felt his chest tighten. Outside, the wind had stopped. The air felt heavier, like something was pressing down from the sky. Alira stood still, her eyes wide. He has never been wrong. Jake didn't ask how the boy knew. He just moved. "Pack everything now." Within minutes, Jake had thrown a bag over his shoulder. Batteries, food, maps, his old handgun. He opened a trapdoor in the kitchen floor. Underneath was a narrow tunnel, dark and cold. An old emergency escape route from the base days. "This leads to the creek half a mile down," Jake said. "We'll lose them in the trees." Alira wrapped Keel in a blanket. The child looked calm, too calm for someone who just predicted danger. Before leaving, Jake stopped by the door. He looked at Max. "Let's go, boy." The dog ran ahead into the tunnel as if he knew what to do. Outside. 5 minutes later, a sound like ripping wind cut through the sky. 3 dark shapes appeared above the trees. Not helicopters. Not drones. They didn't make the right sounds. No engines, no blades. Just a deep mechanical hum, almost like breathing. Then came the red lights. They blinked once. Then turned solid. Scanning mode. The trackers had arrived, but the cabin was empty. In the forest, Jake pushed tree branches aside as they moved quickly through the dark. Mud squished under their boots. Max barked once, then stopped. He had seen something. Jake looked behind. Red lights, glowing in the distance. Moving fast. Too fast. "They're not walking," he said. "They're gliding." Alira looked at him. "They are no longer fully alive. The machines control." "Then now," Jake's eyes narrowed. "What are they?" She replied softly, "They were once human. Now they are something else." Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked through the woods, a pulse blast. A tree next to them exploded, splinters flying everywhere. "Run!" Jake shouted. They ran downhill, feet sliding, branches slapping their faces. Another pulse shot. This one missed them by inches. They reached the creek, cold and fast-flowing. Jake pulled them into the water and crouched low. Max stood growling, teeth bared. Up the hill, one of the hunters appeared. It looked human, but wrong. Skin pale, eyes glowing red. Its mouth didn't move when it spoke, but a voice came out anyway, through a speaker on its chest. "Return the child." Alira held keel. Tighter. Jake raised his gun. "Come and take him." The machine didn't hesitate. It jumped into the creek. Jake fired 3 times. Sparks flew from its shoulder. But it didn't fall. Then, suddenly, Keel raised his hand. A soft blue light appeared around him. The hunter stopped mid-step. Its red eyes flickered. Its legs began to shake. And then it collapsed, face first into the water. Dead, or at least disabled. Jake stared at the boy. "What the hell was that?" Alira's voice trembled. "He's not just a child, he's waking up." They didn't wait. They ran again, deeper into the woods, toward an old hidden shack Jake remembered. From his time at the base stop, by the time the sun began to rise, they were inside, breathing hard, wet and cold. Jake locked the door and looked through the cracks in the wall. No sign of pursuit. For now, he turned to Alira. "What's inside your son?" She looked at him for a long time, then finally said, "He is not a weapon. But they fear he could become one." Jake nodded slowly. "They want to control him or destroy him." Alira sat on the floor and cradled Keel. "He is the first of his kind. Half of me, half of you. That makes him powerful and dangerous." Jake sat down, wiped mud from his face, and stared at the dying firelight. "If they found us once, they'll find us again. We need a plan." Suddenly, the radio Jake carried crackled. A voice came through. "Jake, this is Commander Rayner. We need to talk." Jake froze. That was a voice from his past. A man he hadn't spoken to in years. Alira looked at him. Jake's heart beat faster. "How did he find us?" The small wooden shack creaked in the morning wind. Jake sat by the broken window, holding the old radio like it was made of glass. The voice he had heard moments ago still echoed in his mind. "Jake, this is Commander Rayner. We need to talk." That man was supposed to be dead. Alira stood in the corner, her arms wrapped tightly around Keel, who was still half asleep. His skin glowed faintly again, that same soft blue light, like moonlight trapped under skin. Jake turned to her. "He knows where we are." Alira didn't look surprised. They always knew. They were just waiting. Jake grabbed the radio. Again, his voice was calm but cold. "Rayner, how do I know it's really you?" A pause, then, "Because I was there, Jake, the day we shut down Project Emberfall, the day we erased the files. And the day you walked away." Jake clenched his jaw. Alira looked at him. "What is Emberfall?" Jake stared at the floor. Secret project. They were building something with alien DNA, your DNA. Later that day, as the sun rose higher, Jake and Alira sat outside the shack. Max guarded the door. Keel was resting. Jake took a deep breath. You deserve to know something too. He told her about his past. I worked on a deep code translation program. We were trying to read alien signals from a crashed ship. The data was too complex. But then your people sent help, your husband, Sarian, and others. Alira nodded. We thought we were helping build peace. Jake sighed. We were building a weapon. Without knowing it. Inside the shack, Keel suddenly woke up. He sat straight and stared at the ceiling. His voice was quiet, but strong. They're dreaming again. Jake and Alira ran inside. What did he say? Jake asked. Alira looked worried. He's not talking about people. He's talking about minds, powerful ones. Sleeping minds. Jake blinked. What minds? She whispered. Ancients. Beings from before your world began, locked away, but slowly waking up. Keel turned his head, his eyes glowing now, not blue, but silver. They are watching me. They don't want me to live. Alira held him tight. Jake stepped back. What is he really, Alira? She finally spoke the truth. He is not just my son, he is a signal. Jake didn't understand. A signal? She nodded. He carries data, not just genes. His body is a living message, a message encoded in light and memory. He can feel the minds of others, and one day he might speak to the stars themselves. Jake looked at the boy. He looked so calm, so human, and yet nothing about him was normal. But why would they fear that? He asked. Alira's voice turned cold. Because he might be able to wake them up. Jake stepped outside again, the wind colder now. He turned on the radio. Once more, Raynor, I need answers. The voice came back fast. Then meet me. Come alone. Your location is no longer safe. Jake looked at Alira. She shook her head. It's a trap. Jake smiled faintly. Probably. That night, while Alira and Keel slept, Max sat next to Jake at the window. Jake whispered to the dog, What did we just walk into, boy? The stars above seemed closer somehow, and as he stared at them, he saw one of them move, a star. That wasn't a star at all, It blinked once, then vanished. Jake's spine went cold. Back inside, Keel stood silently. His eyes were glowing. Again, he walked to Jake and said something strange. If the door opens, don't look inside. Don't listen to their voices. Jake blinked. What door? Keel looked up at him and whispered, The one in the sky. Asterisk the road to the meeting. Place was broken and silent. Jake drove alone, the dirt path cracking under his tires. Tall trees leaned in from both sides, like they were watching. He hadn't told Alira exactly where he was going. Just 4 words. If I don't return, run. Max stayed behind with her and the boy. Jake had his gun, a small flashlight, and an old army patch in his pocket, the same patch Raynor gave him years ago. The place was an abandoned signal tower, hidden deep in the forest. Half of it had fallen, the other half stood like a skeleton. Raynor was already there, standing in shadow. Jake. The voice came, deeper now, older, but still calm. Like a man who had stopped being afraid a long time ago. Jake stepped closer. Raynor looked tired. His face had scars, and one eye was now cybernetic, glowing faint red. Jake stopped a few feet away. You look like hell. Raynor gave a faint smile. I've seen it. Jake didn't smile back. Why call me now? Raynor nodded. Because it's time you knew the truth. They entered the tower. Inside was a table covered in old files, photos, and data drives. Most were stamped, classified. Eyes only, Raynor tapped on one file. This is the real Emberfall. Jake opened it. Inside were pictures of alien bodies, strange blue blood, broken ships, and a photo of Alara's husband, Sarian. Alive. Standing with human soldiers. Smiling, Jake looked up. He worked with us, willingly. Raynor nodded. He did. Until he found out what we were hiding. Raynor walked slowly, hand brushing an old screen. There was never just one treaty, Jake. There were 2, one for the public, and one in the shadows. Jake's eyes narrowed. What was the second? Raynor's voice lowered. We promised peace, but we were mining something from their world. Something buried? Something ancient? We didn't understand it, but we knew it could rewrite everything, energy, time, even thought. Jake backed up. You're talking about a weapon. No, Rayner said. I'm talking about a mind. Jake stared at him. A living mind? Rayner nodded slowly. Something your people had locked away for centuries. Something you were afraid to wake, but we didn't listen. We dug too deep. Jake remembered Keel's words. If the door opens, don't look inside. He felt a cold chill crawl up his back. Rayner sat down, looking tired. Sarian found out. He tried to stop us, but by then it was too late. The gate had already whispered. Jake's stomach dropped. The gate? Rayner nodded. A portal, not just between worlds, but between realities. Jake looked away, trying to understand it all. So, the treaty was broken because we went too far. Rayner's answer was simple. Yes, Jake clenched his fists. And now they want revenge. Rayner shook his head. No, Jake, they don't want revenge. He looked up, eyes hollow. They want to survive. Jake stood quietly, breathing heavily. Then he asked the one question that had haunted him since the cabin. What is Keel? Rayner paused. He picked up a metal cube from the table and handed it to Jake. Scan this near the boy. If the cube lights up, it means he's already activated. Jake looked at the cube. What happens if he is? Rayner's answer was slow, almost fearful. Then he's not just a signal. He's a key. Jake drove back faster than he came. The forest felt darker now. As if it knew what he had learned. At the shack, Alira was waiting. She looked at Jake, her eyes asking questions he hadn't answered yet. Jake didn't speak. He just knelt beside Keel and held out the cube the moment it came close. The cube lit up. Bright. Blinding. And then Keel opened his eyes, but this time he didn't speak in a child's voice. He spoke in many voices at once, male, female, old, young. Some didn't sound human at all. It has begun. The cube's light faded slowly. Silence filled the shack. Jake stared at Keel. The boy was awake, but something in his eyes had changed. He was calm, too calm, not like a child. Not even like a person. Alira looked scared, not of her son, but of what was now speaking through him. Jake whispered, What do you mean? It has begun? Keel looked at him and answered in many voices at once. The signal has been received. Others have heard. Not just here, not just now. Jake stood up and looked out the window. Far in the sky, several lights were blinking. Not stars, not planes. He turned to Alira. We can't stay here. If they track the cube, we're not safe. She nodded. Where will we go? Jake didn't hesitate. The relay tower. Alira froze. You said it was dead? It was, Jake said, but not anymore. The last pulse came through 2 days ago. Something turned it back on. He looked at Keel. You did, didn't you? Keel simply blinked. One word left his mouth. Yes. By nightfall, they were on the move. Max led the way through deep forest paths. Jake had a small tracker tablet, blinking with a signal from the tower. It was miles away, hidden in the hills. Built long ago to send deep space communications. It had been silent for years, until now. Meanwhile, in an underground lab far from the forest, a group of cybernetic hunters received the ping. Red lights flashed. One command appeared on the screen. Retrieve the child. Destroy all else. Back in the forest, Jake, Alira, and Keel reached the base of the hill. The tower stood above them, half broken, but glowing. Faint lights blinked near the top, power lines reconnected by something. Or someone. Jake unlocked a side door with an old ID card. Still works. Inside the air was cold. Dust everywhere. Dead machines. But at the center was a circular panel like a table, covered in old buttons and a broken microphone. This is where they first sent the peace signal, Jake said, before everything went wrong. Alira placed Keel near the panel. Jake powered up the console. Lights flickered. Static noise came through the speakers. Searching for channel. Searching. Uplink found. Alira stepped forward. What do we say? Jake looked at her, then at Keel. We let him speak. Keel walked slowly to the console. He placed one hand on the metal surface. Instantly, the screen changed. Symbols, equations, maps of stars. Then a strange, soft sound filled the room, like 1,000 whispers at once. Some were crying, some were warning. Keel's voice rose above them. We did not want war, but we were hunted. The peace was broken, not by us, but by fear. I am the memory of both worlds. I carry your blood. And hers. I am not your enemy. But they are coming, not to speak, not to ask. To take? The signal grew louder, now echoing far beyond Earth's orbit. Jake looked at the radar. Blips were closing in fast. They're here. Outside, 3 ships descended through the clouds. No engines, no fire. Just shadows and red light. The trees began to shake. Max barked wildly. Jake looked at Alira. Get to the stairs. Go up. Send the final pulse. Alira hesitated. What? About you? Jake loaded his gun. I stay. At the door, the first enemy arrived. Not a man. Not a machine. Something in between. Its face was hidden behind black armor. Its hands moved like wires, and its voice cold and empty. Give us the child. Jake pointed his weapon. You'll have to go through me. The creature stepped forward. Jake fired. Sparks, smoke. It didn't stop, but suddenly it froze. A blinding white light came from above. Keel stood at the top of the stairs, glowing brighter than before, not afraid, not running, speaking in one final voice. You cannot control what you do not understand. The air cracked. The walls shook. And the enemy, every one of them, fell. Silence. Alira reached the top console. The final pulse sent a golden beam, shot into the sky, through the clouds, into space, like a flare from a drowning world. Jake sat down, breathing hard. He looked at Keel and smiled for the first time in days. You did it, kid. But Keel's face was serious. They're not the worst ones. Jake's heart skipped. Then who is? Keel looked up at the stars. The ones who hear us next. Asterisk, the sky was no longer quiet. Above the broken tower, a golden beam of light still burned upward, like a message written in fire, aimed at the stars. It had already gone beyond Earth's orbit, farther than any human signal before. Jake stood at the edge of the platform, looking up. His clothes were torn, his hands were shaking, but his eyes were steady. Behind him, the tower creaked and hummed. Broken text sparked back to life as if something or someone had awakened inside it. Keel sat silently at the center of the console. His skin was brighter now, like light lived under it. He looked human, but everyone in that room knew he wasn't anymore. Alira leaned against the wall, blood on her sleeve. She had been hit during the escape, but she smiled anyway. You stayed, she whispered. Jake nodded slowly. Didn't know I was the running type? Then the sound came, a deep, low hum. But not from the sky, from below. Jake turned. What is that? Keel answered without looking. Something old. Something waking? Up. Jake looked confused. From under us? Keel nodded. Not all stars are in the sky? Suddenly the ground shook. Once, then again, the lights of the tower blinked. Alarms came alive. A deep, ancient voice echoed inside Jake's mind. You opened the gate. Jake dropped to one knee, hands on his ears. What was that? Alira's face turned pale. They heard us. But not all who heard. Our friends. Then silence. A crack appeared in the air. Not in the ground. In the air itself, like glass splitting. Through it stars shimmered, but twisted wrong. A portal. And from it a ship came, not human. Not like anything Earth had ever built. It hovered above the tower, glowing with soft blue light, peaceful, but powerful. A voice spoke in the wind. Not a threat, not a demand, a welcome. You are not alone. The ship opened its side. A glowing platform lowered, waiting. Alira looked at Jake. They answered, not the ones who hunt, but the ones who remember. The old allies. Jake stared at the ship. Are they here to help? Keel stood up. His voice was soft now, almost childlike again. They will take us, far from here. But only if we go now? Jake looked at the sky, then back at the trees. Back at the world he once believed in, broken, but still home. He faced Alira. You have to go. She frowned. We? Not you? Jake shook his head. Earth's not ready. Someone needs to stay to tell the truth, to warn them, to fight what's coming next. He looked at Keel. Your hope, kid. You're the future. I'm just the messenger. The platform began to rise with Alira and Keel on it. Max howled once, then ran up beside them. The ship waited, humming. Like a song. Jake stepped back, eyes full but dry. Keel looked down at him one last time. We'll meet again, Jake nodded. I'll be ready. The ship rose into the sky, slowly, beautifully, and vanished into the stars. The crack in the air closed behind it, and the world went quiet again. Jake sat alone at the edge of the tower. The forest below swayed gently in the wind. He picked up his old army patch and smiled. Let them come. He reached into his bag, pulled out a small recorder, and pressed record. My name is Jake Nolan. I've seen what's out there. I've met the future, and if you're hearing this, we still have a chance.